Tanche Kakawik. Welcome, everyone. My name is Candace, and this is an opportunity for us to gather together on Indigenous Peoples Day to learn about and reclaim our heritage. You may notice that both fiddler players are wearing the sash, the midship sash. It is the Carnaval pattern. It was created in 1972 for the Carnival of Montreal. It is worn by Bonhomme Denage, and he, of course, is Métis. I enjoy telling the story of the sash. There's so many practical purposes. We considered it the duct tape of the North. It's used for everything from splinting during first aid to sewing a wound.
Kwekwe, Makwa Wapchekwe Indigenous, Makwa Dodam, Shabata Bajwan, no Nikuna Kona Don Jaba, Tich Bernandayam, Mano Kijagat. What I said in my language is hello. I'm called White Bear Woman. I belong to the Bear Clan. I reside in the traditional, ancestral, unceded lands of the Shabata Bajwan First Nation of the Algonquin Nations. And I live in Titchburg. Good day. So what I find really interesting about Indigenous Persons Day is that it's to celebrate the first peoples of our lands here. The Algonquins lived in this territory here 8,000 years before Europeans started coming across to North America. We met Samuel de Champlain in approximately 1603, and we were a really big part of the fur trade. Some of our people even went with him when he explored the interior of Canada. We were present here in the Bay of Quinte, along with the Mississaugas, along the edge of Lake Ontario, and in, I think it's 1764 or 1784, there was a band of Mohawks that came across with about 20 families, and they landed in the area over here. And that's when they first come over, and then that established part of their family, and they intermarried and mingled in with the Algonquins of the area and some of the Mississaugas of the area. And then when they came up north to Canada to escape persecution after the War of 1812, they were given lands that the Loyalists had been given after the government of the time had taken the lands from the Mississauga. So the Mississauga, the Bay of Quinte, had to move, and then their lands were given to the Mohawks, and the establishment of Tyendinaga proceeded after that. So the lands here have been occupied since time immemorial between the Mississaugas, the Algonquins, and then the immigration of the Mohawks to Canada were done as well. So there has been influence and use of the land traditionally by different nations, and that was because we were semi-nomadic. We weren't stationary people, we traveled. And we traveled during the summer months, and we went to our winter camps to do our trapping for our furs, and we went up towards the winter camps prior to winter to get the meat to be able to survive the winter time. I think that this history is important to know because we never viewed the land as ours as a possession. It belongs to Mother Earth. We are part of nature and part of Mother Earth. And we use the lands. When we left the land, somebody else would come in and use it. we didn't have ownership per se, or have that concept of ownership until after colonization started, and our lands were appropriated from us, and we started being colonized. So part of that colonization happened, and in the process of that colonization, we lost some of our languages, we lost some of our customs and traditions. And what's nice about this time, although it does bring up a lot of the bad history that we have with colonialism and what happened to the Indigenous people, is that it's allowed for a resurgence of culture and tradition, to reclaim our practices, our traditional practices and culture. And it has allowed us to reacquire some of our language and our ceremonies. And so drumming is really important when we're talking about the reclaiming and reacquiring of language, because music is part of the way we learn the language. And we use music in lots of things. We use music to soothe our babies. We use music to heal our broken hearts. We use music for ceremony. We use music to communicate with one another. We use drumming as a means of communication over vast distances. So music is part of nature. We just found different ways to manipulate it and use it. When we're talking about our drums, there's teachings that go along with the different kinds of drums that we have, and part of that is cultural. Part of that is a connection to the land. It's land-based knowledge. Part of it is a connection to our community, because different communities have different practices. Who can drum on what drum, how you have to dress when you're drumming. Those are all things that are determined individually by the community members, and traditions that have been handed down from generation to generation. When we're talking about the music, the rhythm, the cadence, and the language is all important, and they come together. Although you can do each one separately, it doesn't have as much significance or meaning until you get the whole thing together. And we talk about how Indigenous people have a holistic approach to things. It's the same with our music. It touches our soul, it touches our spirit, it helps soothe our mind, it helps us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's one of the ways that we're able to keep things together. It's also a memory aid for us, because we'll remember things that we've been told or taught in relationship to a hymn or a song or a melody that we might have, and we'll have a story that will go with that, and we connect things together that way. So Indigenous History Month, I think, is really important about learning about the people that were on the lands before they were colonized, before the establishments of towns and villages, and even in the establishments of towns and villages. Where I live in Charlotte Lake, it's the only village that I know of so far in Ontario that actually recognizes that the village was established by Indigenous people. It actually has the pictures of Chief Francis Charbot and Mary Susan the Great hanging up in the town hall, and they're listed as the founders of that village. And those are my great grandparents. And so I thought that was really neat when I found out that it was founded by Indigenous people and the village recognized that. And then it was kind of really cool that I found out that I was related to the founders of the village. And so my family has lived in that area for, well, since then anyway. So when we're talking about Indigenous history and that, I think it's really important that You find out whose land you're on or whose land you're visiting. What nation was there before colonization? What language did they speak? What were some of their customs and traditions? And by doing that, you can honor those people that lived there before you, that made that passage available for you to be living on those lands. A lot of terrible things happened in the past, and we can't go back and change it. We can't go back and fix it. But it's from the knowledge of those things that happened in the past, we can then determine where we want the future to go, and we can take steps to correct that so that those things don't happen again. And I think that that's really important, but you can't understand and you can't change something if you don't have an understanding or a basis of information to work from about the people that were here first. And so I think that's why it's important to learn that history, to get that understanding of what happened beforehand, who was here beforehand, so that we can show proper respects and acknowledgements, and that things can be done in a good way from this point forward. Chimigwich. We're going to do a song called the Anishinaabe Love Song, and the words talk about how we're telling you the truth, we're giving you our hearts, how we love you, and the last verse is again about how we're telling you the truth. And it's an upbeat rhythm, and it's supposed to be fun, and hopefully one of these days you'll be able to understand the words that we're saying and be able to sing it to your friends. Gigana no na Anishinaabe, aho ho. Gigana no na Anishinaabe, aho ho. Gigana no na Anishinaabe, Gigana no na Anishinaabe, Gigana no na Anishinaabe, aho ho. Desawami ma Anishinaabe, aho ho. Desawani ma Anishinaabe, aho ho. Deswani ma Anishinaabe, Deswani ma Anishinaabe, Deswani ma Anishinaabe, aho. Desaga Anishinaabe, aho ho. Desaga Anishinaabe, aho ho. Desaga Anishinaabe, Desaga Anishinaabe, Desaga Anishinaabe, aho. Gigana no na Anishinaabe, aho ho. Gigana no na Anishinaabe, aho ho. Gigana no na Anishinaabe, Gigana no na Anishinaabe, Gigana no na Anishinaabe,